This is Stuck on Pandora. You can see me most often at twitch.tv/StuckOnPandora. And today I'm going to go over the Zane Doomslayer build video. In my opinion, Zane is the most human of all the Vault Hunters in Borderlands 3. There's nothing at first glance or most obviously overpowered about him immediately so. He's the Batman of the Justice League. Moze has her mech and grenade builds and bottomless mags and the rest. Flack's got his beast. And Amari has got her magic, and you have, well, gadgets. So Zane has to be like Batman in his use of stealth and speed. So in this build, you're going to be all about maximizing your DPS through speed, violence, and momentum. It's an aggressive style, it has high risks and high rewards, and it is spec'd heavily into a very specific style, making it useless in other standpoints. So the cons to this build are, you're not going to one-shot bosses. You're not going to use this to farm Grave Ward. I can kill those guys with this build, but it's not fast and so it's not efficient. You can be squishy in this build. Fairly dependent upon gear. I'm going to offer some alternatives to the gear that I'm going to suggest, but without it, you're lowering your DPS, and if you couple that with the other weaknesses this build is going to have, you might be in for a bad day. It's also not a set it and forget it style of play. You're going to need to be actively moving, killing, shooting, and mobbing out in order to really make the most of this. The pros are, when you sequence things right, your DPS is nasty. You're literally just going to turn things into red mist. You will delete the enemies. I've also found this to be an extremely efficient build for mobbing, killing name bosses, not the vault bosses per se, but like Chupacabra or Megamind, anybody like that. Making those runs with this character is really efficient. And so any kind of farming with this dude is perfect. Doomslayer Zane. Most of all, it's fun. So here's what you need. Okay, so what is our goal? Alright, our goal is thus. Here's how we start. We want to be the Doomslayer. The synergy of this build comes from Violent Speed, which gives Zane up to 15% movement speed after killing an enemy, and Violent Momentum, which is that Zane gains increased gun damage while moving. The quicker he moves, the greater the gun damage bonus, up to 20%. We can help this with our class mod, but regardless, if you've got those two skills, you're already on your way, and you have an approximation of what we're going for. That's the foundation to this whole thing. Violent Speed and Violent Momentum. So there is some flexibility with this build, mind you, depending on your preference, but I wouldn't deviate from Death Follows Close. I wouldn't deviate really at all from the Sentinel tree. So Death Follows Close makes it so that all of your abilities are 25% more potent and last 7 more seconds. Now this is going to be important because we need to get at level 28 preferably to Seeing Red. Seeing Red makes it so that activating an action skill gives Zane all of his kill skills. So you immediately get Violent Speed, Violent Momentum up. You're moving quick, and now it's your job to begin slaying out, being the Doomslayers. So Zane's style in this build is similar to Brick in Borderlands 1 as the Blastmaster. So long as your kill skills are up, you'll be a wrecking ball. The difference between Brick and Zane in this case is that Brick's power was in just pure DPS, and your power is going to be in movement speed and different synergies coming together for that one really good shot and then keeping it going. I would also suggest drone delivery, as this is going to give you access to your grenade mod, which you don't ordinarily have, and it really is a huge help. It turns your drone into an F-16, and being able to put, I'm going to have a couple grenades in there, I would suggest for you, but either a cryo grenade or some kind of healing grenade is just going to step this build up. I highly suggest speccing into Winter's drone, unless you're going to spec into your Digiclone and try to unlock Supersonic Man. Mind you, that in Borderlands 3, you don't need to have the skill point in the perk to unlock it. Your mod already does that for you automatically, so as long as you're going to be using the mod, I'm going to suggest here in just a moment, you're going to have at least 1 point in this. So getting a point or two out of your mod configures it, I think, is plenty for Supersonic Man. It's just a little bit of a help. This build also doesn't rely on the perk Supersonic Man. Bad Dose is also highly recommended. In fact, I'd say it's mandatory. It's steroids for this build. There's no upper limit. The more enemies that your Digiclone hurts and attacks, the more movement speed you're going to get. And so this is, again, a mobbing build. This is just about running through the enemies and just blitzing straight through them. Well, the more enemies are in the room and the more they're affected by the radiation from your Sentinel, even more movement speed. Remember, the name of the game here is speed. Mass plus acceleration equals force in real life. Well, for Zane, in this build, it's movement speed plus skill uptime equals DPS. You can play with a skill point or two depending on your preference here. You don't necessarily have to grab Cool Hands like I did for reload speed. You could grab Salvation. You could get a little more survivability in there. I do suggest you go with Cold Bore though, because Cryo becomes, at least in my version of this build, the core of our survivability. Not only that, your drone is already freezing everything for you, so we'll get into that. Now I spec into barrier. Okay, now I will say I wouldn't skip the barrier tree, because if you do skip the barrier tree, you'll be missing out on one of the best perks in the game right now. Calm, Cool, Collected. Calm, Cool, Collected grants you overall synergy to everything you do in the game. You freeze an enemy, you get your shield back. Got your shield? Okay, you get your health back. You got full health and you got full shield? Okay, have your skills back. Not only that, your drone has cryo on it. Your abilities are going to have cryo on it. You could put a cryo grenade on your drone. You're going to be freezing people. You're going to be freezing people. They're going to be standing still while you are blazing past. So I've got 3 suggestions here if you do decide to follow my course here and stick with the barrier tree. I would go with adrenaline, because you're going to get your action skill back more often. This is both fantastic for starting engagements, but also if you mess up the engagement, you need to get your kill skills back so that you can be at your maximum DPS. This is just going to help you reset that much quicker. The more uptime you have on your skills, the more uptime we have on our kill skills. And so the more kill skills we have going, the faster we're going to run, and the faster we run, the more damage we're going to do. Brain freeze. Cryo is our survivability, as I said. So every time you hit an enemy with a critical hit, you're probably going to slow them. I mean, if you have a gun, say you have one of the Vladov spin guns, you're going to be throwing out so many bullets. So 20%, 20%, 20 proc, and that every time you're going to freeze enemies constantly. And every time you freeze them, I would get yourself down to refreshment, because if you've already gone down to Calm, Cool, Collected, try to get a point or 2 in refreshment. Oh, you froze your enemy. Now you're damaging them. All that health's coming back to you. And the kind of damage you're going to be pulling out, full health. Cold Bore is crowd control, and crowd control in a shooter is always strong. These guys are frozen in place, and meanwhile you're sprinting by like Usain Bolt with the Hellwalker shotgun and just blasting these guys to particles. So best served cold is an assistant. Keep the cryo element spreading around in every way. Crits, the drone gear. And then you've got some survivability in place, and refreshment is really the capstone to that. Okay, gear. I'll go over an ideal set and an alternative set if you're just feeling too squishy or you can't get a hold of this gear yet. There's only one thing which cannot be replaced in this build, which is a weapon known as the Hellwalker shotgun. You can farm this thing off Commander Trant on Athenas. It's also in the general loot pool. I got mine off a loot tink. The shotgun packs enough of a punch that with our movement speed, you'll be turning the COV into mist. Slide into them and you will not see them anymore. Also, for pragmatic reasons, if you're on console, I would go to your settings and I would turn your controls back to classic so that you have a hot swap option. Again, this is not a build that's about like just face melting everything. You're going to need to be actively in control of every element to make it flow. Borderlands 3 is more punishing about matching element. I would at a minimum couple the Hellwalker with your favorite cryo weapon of any kind. SMG, shotgun, pistol, doesn't matter so long as you can freeze them and then blow their heads off with the Hellwalker shotgun. Ideally, we want the Spirited Infiltrator mod for its perk, that the lower the shield, the greater the bonus in movement speed and gun damage. Again, this is perfect for our purposes. It ties exactly into violent speed and violent momentum. We have more speed and we have more damage. So not only that, in Borderlands speak, typically gun damage is additive and weapon damage is multiplicative. I can't test this because there's no percentage describing how much of a bonus we're supposed to get, so it's hard to tell. Chupacabra is generous with class mods, and but I did farm mine off a loot tank. So you couple this with the Rough Rider. That way we are permanently in the lowered shield state and walking around with permanent movement speed and weapon damage buffed. This, of course, again synergizes with those core skills of violent speed and violent momentum. We're really stepping the whole speed game up a notch. So we're going to come into an engagement with a head full of steam, and we're going to hit hard, and then it's about continuing that. It really is about momentum. Any artifact from there that offers movement speed, slot that in. There's not really an alternative there. There's purples that offer movement speed. My personal favorite though are the ones that have a cryo slide and also a slide bonus, because they're both in our wheelhouse. We freeze the enemy on our slide, we throw a snowball out there, which those actually hit pretty hard, and then the player seems to actually carry some of that speed, that acceleration into them. They don't just come to a dead stop. So you're gonna have like 2 or 3 paces where you're going much faster than ordinarily you would. Use that, because that's gonna tie into your damage. Also, jumping helps, I found. As you're falling down, gravity's pulling you down, that also counts as acceleration. That's going to give you more speed. I would call that the optimized set. I'm always looking for anointed loot though, because I'm not there either. I want to get my Rough Rider anointed with, I'm hoping while Sentinel is active, 15% movement speed, which ties into the alternative sets. If you're still purely just looking to do as much speed as possible like I've gone for, you can find a purple anointed shield that's going to give you 15% movement speed when Sentinel is active, and you're going to be just as zippy, honestly. And it's going to come with the advantage of some more survivability. The The only problem is you're going to have to deal with this annoying thing when you use your Infiltrator mod, that when you toss out your abilities, your shield instantly breaks. But I found some good alternatives as well. Non-Anointed, the workhorse front loader, has increased movement speed just on it. You do have to keep your shield full, but it does have movement speed on it. And then any legendary shield that has the anointment with, when Sentinel is active, you have more movement speed. The advantage, again, you're going to get survivability, and you don't have to farm the Rough Rider, because the Rough Rider he's supposedly attached to the Grave Ward, and I have seen it drop off of him, but it's a pretty rare drop from what I've experienced. You're also going to lose some DPS for the survival, keep in mind. But if you feel like you're still dying a lot, I think that the Executor legendary mod is a fine replacement. The style remains the same. You're going to lose some of that acceleration and that speed, granted, but you're going to gain it right back, and that you'll be living more. You're going to have a higher constitution. But I'll tell you, playing Dirty, which is the perk that you have a chance to throw out an extra shot, it can feel like money shot sometimes, and you can really pepper some damage on there. So it's a worthwhile replacement. I don't think it's ideal, but it will do the job. Finally, briefly, play style. Open your engagements with your skills. Time these right. When you're right about to engage, what I always do is I throw on my barrier, and then I run through the barrier to gain 8% more movement speed, and then I toss my drone out. And now you are zipping. From here, it is your job, Doomslayer, to...
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
Rip and tear. The more you slay and keep the momentum flowing, the more you're going to run downhill, and you're not going to wake up until Mars is cleared of the demon threat. If you run into trouble, Calm, Cool, Collected, and Refreshment should provide you enough cooldown and or health regeneration to throw out another action skill and refill your tanks for another go. Further, I tap into Rise of the Occasion. The lower your shield is, the higher the health regeneration. With Rough Rider, perma health regen of 5%. Now, it's your turn, Vault Hunter, to rise to the occasion. I'll see you at twitch.tv/stuck on Pandora.